She is traveling. That was what my son-in-law Michael told me when I knocked on his door that October morning. He smiled, as he always did, but there was something in his eyes that did not fit with that smile. My name is Emily Parker. I am 55 years old, and what I am about to tell you is the most painful truth I have lived as a mother. It all started a week earlier. Sarah, my daughter, stopped answering my messages. At first I thought she was busy. She works at a graphic design agency. She is always running from one place to another, but Sarah never, ever left me without a reply for more than a day. I wrote to her on Monday morning. "Daughter, how did you wake up?" Sending you a kiss. 2 blue check marks. Seen. But there was no reply. On Tuesday I tried again. "Sarah, my love, is everything okay? I worry when I do not hear from you." Seen. Silence. On Wednesday I called. 3 times. Voicemail. On Thursday I wrote again. "Honey, please answer me, even if it is just an emoji. I need to know you are okay." Seen. Nothing. That night I could not sleep. I stared at my phone screen in the darkness of my room. The letters glowed. Seen. But not a single word back. On Friday morning, I made a decision. I was going to her house without warning, because a mother knows, a mother feels, and I felt that something was not right. I drove down the interstate with my heart squeezed tight. Traffic was heavy as usual, but I barely noticed. I only thought about those unanswered messages, those calls she never picked up. I arrived at their neighborhood around 11 in the morning, a quiet area, full of trees, with nice houses and white fences. Sarah and Michael had lived there for 2 years. I parked in front of the house. The gate was closed. I rang the doorbell. I waited. I rang again. Then I heard footsteps. The door opened, and there he was, Michael, my son-in-law, smiling. "Emily, what a surprise." "Is everything okay?" "I came to see Sarah," I said. "She has not answered me all week." He stayed silent for a second, just a second, but I saw it. Something passed through his gaze. "Oh, she is traveling," he said finally with that same smile. "She went with some friends to California. You know how she is, suddenly she gets an idea and she goes. She told me she would let you know." I stared at him. "To California?" Yes, it was last minute. You know, she wanted to disconnect a bit from work." I nodded slowly, but something in my chest did not fit. Sarah never traveled without telling me. Never, and even less without answering my messages. "And when does she return?" I asked. I think Monday or Tuesday. I am not sure." Michael kept smiling, but his hands were tense on the door frame. "Well," I said, "then I will call her later." Yes, of course. I will tell her you stopped by." He gave me a kiss on the cheek. He smelled of coffee and something else, something I could not identify. I went back to my car. I put the key in the ignition, but I did not start it. I stayed there, sitting, looking at that house. Something was not right. Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not, right? Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read you. I started the engine, made the turn to leave the street, and then I heard it. A sound, barely audible. A moan, muffled, drowned out. It came from the garage. I slammed on the brakes. My heart started beating so fast I felt it was going to explode. That sound, that moan, was not normal. I turned off the engine. I stayed there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to understand what I had just heard. Had it been real? Or was my mind playing tricks on me? I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and I heard it again, clearer this time. A moan, weak, desperate. It came from inside the garage. Something in my stomach tightened, a sensation that only mothers know. That instinct that screams at you that something is wrong, that your daughter needs you, that you cannot ignore what is happening, even if the whole world tells you that you are exaggerating. I opened the car door very slowly. Silence. The street was empty. Only the song of a bird in the tree across the street and the distant noise of traffic on the avenue could be heard. I walked back toward the house, but this time I did not ring the doorbell. This time I went around the property to the side. There was a low fence that divided the garden from the side entrance. I jumped it without thinking twice. I do not know where I got the strength. Fear makes you capable of anything. The garage had a small window, high up with frosted glass. I got closer. I put my ear against the wall. Nothing. Just my accelerated breathing. Maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe Sarah really was in California and I was there, behaving like a paranoid, crazy woman. But then I heard it again. A soft thud, as if something had fallen. And then another moan. Louder this time. My blood froze. That was not my imagination. There was someone in there, and that someone needed help. I need you to understand something before continuing with this story. Sarah was always a happy child since she was little. When she was 5, she ran through the house singing made-up songs. She loved to draw. She spent hours and hours with her crayons, creating worlds of colors on sheets of paper. I remember her laugh. It was contagious. When Sarah laughed, the whole house filled with light. She grew up to be an independent woman, strong, intelligent. She studied graphic design at the State University. She graduated with honors. She got a job at one of the best agencies in the city. I was so proud of her. And when she met Michael 4 years ago, I thought she had found the right person. He was attentive, polite. He always arrived at family gatherings with flowers for me and a bottle of wine to share. He liked to cook. On Sundays, they came to eat at my house, and he helped in the kitchen, peeling potatoes, chopping onions, asking me for my mother's recipes. "Emily, you have to teach me how to make that pot roast like you do," he would tell me with that smile of his. And I believed him. I believed everything, because that is how mothers are. We want to believe that our daughters are safe, that they chose well, that the man they have by their side is going to take care of them, protect them, love them as they deserve. I never saw alarm signals. Never. Michael never raised his voice. He was never rude. I never saw a bruise on my daughter's body. I never heard a complaint from her. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. But I did not see it. I did not want to see it. Because when you love someone, sometimes you close your eyes to what you do not want to see. I stood in front of that garage for what seemed like an eternity, but it was probably only 30 seconds. 30 seconds in which my entire life passed before my eyes. All the family meals, all the laughter, all the times Michael hugged me and called me Mom Emily. All the times Sarah told me, "Mom, Michael is the love of my life." All that broke in that moment. Because a mother knows, and I knew that behind that door, my daughter was not in California. My daughter was in danger. I took out my cell phone. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I opened the messaging app. The conversations with Sarah were still there. All my unanswered questions. All those letters that said, "Seen," but were never answered. "Daughter, how did you wake up?" Seen. "Sarah, my love, is everything okay?" Seen. "I need to know you are okay." Seen. I turned off the screen. I put the phone in my purse. And then I did something I never imagined I would do. I looked for the garage door. It was locked with a padlock. But to the side there was a smaller side door made of wood, old with peeling paint. The service door that led to the back garden. I turned the handle. It was open. I entered. The smell hit me first. Humidity, motor oil, something else. Something rancid that I could not identify. The garage was dark. Only a thread of light entered through that high window I had seen from outside. It took me a few seconds to get used to the gloom, and then I saw her. In the corner at the back, sitting on the cold cement floor, with her hands tied behind her back, with duct tape on her mouth, with her hair messy and her eyes red from crying so much. My daughter, my Sarah, looked at me with an expression I will never be able to erase from my memory, a mixture of terror, relief, shame, and pleading. My legs failed. I fell to my knees. The air escaped from my lungs as if someone had punched me in the chest. "Sarah," I whispered. She tried to speak, but the sound came out muffled by the tape. She shook her head desperately. Her eyes begged me for something I did not understand in that moment. I crawled towards her. My hands were shaking so much I could barely coordinate my movements. But before touching her, before taking that tape off her mouth, something in my head clicked. Evidence. I needed evidence. I took out my cell phone again, this time with a clear purpose. I opened the camera, and I recorded. I recorded everything. The dark garage, the ropes on her wrists, the tape on her mouth, her wrinkled clothes, her bare feet on the cement floor, the terror in her eyes. "Sarah, my love, I am here," I told her while recording, my voice breaking. "You are safe now. Mom is here." She started to cry. Silent tears ran down her cheeks. I saved the video. I sent it immediately to 3 people, to my brother Louis, to my best friend Linda, and to Mr. Davis, the family lawyer. I wrote only 4 words. "I found Sarah. Call the police." I pressed send. And only then, only when I knew there was proof of what I was seeing, only when I knew that even if Michael returned, he could deny nothing, only then did I approach my daughter. I took the tape off her mouth carefully. She gasped for air as if she had been underwater for hours. "Mom," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, broken, pained. "Shh, my love. Everything is going to be okay." I started to untie the ropes on her wrists. They were so tight they had left red marks on her skin. "How long have you been here?" I asked. Although I was not sure I wanted to know the answer, she swallowed. She closed her eyes. 5 days, she said finally. 5 days. 5 days in which I was sending her messages. 5 days in which Michael saw those messages from her phone and did not reply. 5 days in which my daughter was tied up, gagged, alone, in the darkness of this garage. While I continued with my normal life, while I thought maybe she was busy at work, while I told myself I should not be so insistent, that she was an adult, that she had her own life, guilt pierced me like a knife. "Forgive me," I told her. "Forgive me for not coming sooner." Sarah shook her head. She hugged me with the little strength she had left. "It is not your fault, Mom. You saved me." We stayed like that, hugging on the floor of that horrible garage, crying together, while outside the world kept turning as if nothing happened. While I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know I am not alone in this. In the distance, I heard the sound of sirens approaching. Mr. Davis had been fast. The police were on their way, but then I heard something else. Footsteps. In the house. The door connecting the garage to the interior opened, and there, silhouetted against the light of the hallway, was Michael. He looked at us, and in his eyes there was no longer a smile. There was only something cold, empty, dangerous. Time stopped. Michael was there, standing in the doorframe, looking at me. He said nothing. Neither did I. We just stayed like that, frozen in that impossible moment while the sirens were heard closer and closer. Sarah clung to me tighter. I felt her body trembling against mine. "Mom," she whispered. "Calm down, my love." "He is not going to touch you," I said, although I did not know if it was true. Michael took a step toward us. Just one. But it was enough for my heart to race in a way I had never felt. It was pure fear. Animal fear. The fear a mother feels when she knows her daughter is in danger and she is the only barrier between that danger and her child. "Emily," he said finally. His voice sounded strange, flat, without emotion. "Do not come closer," I told him. My voice came out firmer than I expected. I stood up. I placed myself between him and Sarah. "Emily, this is not what it looks like," he continued, taking another step. "Not what it looks like?" I repeated. and something inside me broke. Not what it looks like, Michael. Your wife has been tied up in this garage for 5 days. Her. She was sick. She was saying things that made no sense. I needed to protect her from herself. I stared at him. Protect her? Is that what you call this? The sirens were already on the street. I heard car doors slamming, voices, footsteps running toward the house. Michael heard them too. I saw how his expression changed. The control he had tried to maintain crumbled in seconds. His face went from that unnatural calm to something resembling panic. "You should not have come," he said, and now his voice sounded different. There was rage in it. "You should not have gotten involved in this. I am her mother," I told him, "and I am going to get involved in everything that has to do with my daughter." The front door of the house opened with a dry bang. "Police! Identify yourselves!" "Here!" I shouted. "We are in the garage." Michael looked at me one last time, and in that look I saw something that froze my blood. It was not regret. It was not guilt. It was resentment, as if I were the guilty one for ruining something he considered perfect. 2 police officers entered the garage with guns drawn. Behind them came a female paramedic with a kit. "Hands up!" One of the officers ordered Michael. He obeyed. Slowly, without saying anything, they handcuffed him right there, while I kept hugging Sarah. The paramedic approached us. "Ma'am, I need to check your daughter," she said with a kind voice. I nodded. I stepped aside. Sarah was still trembling. The paramedic spoke to her softly while checking her wrists, her neck, her blood pressure. "She is dehydrated," she said. "We need to take her to the hospital." "I am going with her," I said immediately. "Of course." While they prepared Sarah to move her, a detective approached me. He was an older man with gray hair and a serious expression. "Mrs. Parker, I am Detective Reynolds. I need you to tell me exactly what happened." I told him everything, from the unanswered messages to the moan I heard. I showed him the video I had recorded. I showed him the conversations on my cell phone. All those unanswered words. He took notes in a small notebook. "You did the right thing by recording," he said. "That evidence is crucial." "What is going to happen to him?" I asked, looking toward where they were taking Michael away in handcuffs. "He is going to be processed. With the evidence we have, he will not get out soon." But something in his tone made me doubt. "But?" The detective sighed. "But these cases are complicated, ma'am. He is going to hire a good lawyer. They are going to try to argue psychological crisis, temporary mental disorder, who knows what else. The system does not always work as it should." I felt rage growing in my chest. "Are you telling me that after what he did to my daughter, he could go free?" "I did not say that. I am only saying the process is going to be long and difficult. Your daughter is going to have to declare, testify, relive all this." I looked at Sarah. They were loading her onto a stretcher. She looked so small, so fragile, so broken. "She is going to do what she has to do," I said, "and I am going to be with her every step." The detective nodded. "That is what she needs. Now go to the hospital. Tomorrow I need you to come to the station to make the formal statement." In the ambulance, Sarah fell asleep. I sat by her side, holding her hand, watching her face. And for the first time since this started, I allowed my mind to process what had just happened. My daughter, my baby girl, the same one who ran through the house singing made-up songs, the same one who graduated with honors, the same one who told me, "Mom, Michael is the love of my life." She had been 5 days tied up in a dark garage, 5 days without enough water, without food, without a bathroom, without dignity. And I had been in my house, living my normal life, waiting for her to answer a message. Guilt suffocated me. How did I not see it? How did I not realize sooner? What kind of mother was I? I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. And then I remembered something. Something that had happened 6 months ago. It was a Sunday. Sarah and Michael had come to eat, as always. I had prepared pot roast, my daughter's favorite dish. We were at the table, eating, talking, laughing. Sarah was telling an anecdote about her work, something about a difficult client who had changed the design 5 times. And then I told him, "Sir, either decide what you want or find another designer because I do not have time for this," she said, laughing. Michael did not laugh. He stared at her with an expression I did not know how to read at that moment. "You told him that?" he asked. "Well, yes, I was fed up," Sarah replied, still smiling. "It does not seem professional to me," Michael said. The tone of his voice changed. It went cold. Sarah stopped smiling. "Well, you were not there. You do not know how the situation was. I know you should not talk to a client like that. It makes you look bad. It makes me look bad, too." There was an uncomfortable silence. I intervened, trying to lighten the mood. "Oh, son. But you know Sarah. She knows how to handle her work. She's always been very professional." Michael looked at me and smiled. That smile of his. "Of course, Mom Emily, you are right." And the topic stayed there. Sarah continued eating in silence. I thought it was nothing, just a small couple's argument, something normal. But now, sitting in that ambulance, holding my sleeping daughter's hand, that memory took on another meaning. It had not been a normal argument. It had been controlled. It had been him telling her that her opinion did not matter, that her decisions affected him, that she had no right to defend herself. And I did not see it. I did not want to see it, because Michael was polite, because he brought flowers, because he helped in the kitchen, because I wanted to believe that my daughter had chosen well. The ambulance stopped in front of the hospital. They opened the back doors. They lowered the stretcher with Sarah still asleep. I followed her, walking like an automaton, feeling the weight of everything I had not seen, of all the signals I had ignored. They took us to the ER. A doctor examined Sarah. They put her on an IV drip. They did blood tests. "She is severely dehydrated," the doctor said, "and she has bruises on her wrists from the ropes. But physically, she is going to be fine. What worries me more is the psychological trauma." "What does she need?" I asked. "Therapy, support, time. This is not cured from one day to the next." I nodded. I would do whatever was necessary, whatever. Sarah woke up a couple of hours later. It was already night. They had moved her to a private room. I was sitting in a chair next to her bed. She opened her eyes slowly. She looked at me. "Mom, I am here, my love. He is arrested. He's not coming back. He's not going to touch you ever again." She nodded, but I saw tears starting to run down her cheeks again. "Forgive me, Mom. Forgive you. Why? For not telling you. For not asking you for help sooner. For letting you believe everything was fine." I got up from the chair. I sat on the edge of her bed. I took her hand. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. What happened to you is not your fault. But I should have—" "No, listen to me well, Sarah. Nothing of what happened is your fault. Nothing." She stayed silent, breathing unevenly. "How did all this start?" I asked gently. "What happened for it to reach this?" Sarah closed her eyes. "It was gradual," she said finally. "At first it was just that he got angry if I went out with my friends. He said he preferred that we spend time together. And I thought it was sweet that he loved me so much he wanted to be with me all the time." She paused. Then he started criticizing my clothes, my work, my decisions. Always with that calm voice, you know? He never yelled. He just said things as if they were obvious, as if I were stupid for not seeing them. And when did he get violent? 3 months ago. I arrived late from a work meeting. He was waiting for me in the living room. He told me I had been with another man. I told him he was crazy, that I had been at the office, but he did not believe me. Her voice broke. He grabbed my arm hard. He left bruises, and afterwards he cried. He asked for forgiveness. He told me he loved me so much that the idea of losing me drove him crazy, that it was never going to happen again. But it did happen again. Yes, and each time it was worse, until a week ago. She stopped. She took a deep breath. A week ago, I told him I wanted a divorce. My heart stopped. And what did he do? He told me he was never going to let me go, that he preferred seeing me dead than with another man. And that same night, he drugged me. He put something in my coffee. When I woke up, I was in the garage, tied up. And he was there, watching me, telling me I was going to learn to be a good wife. I could not hold back the tears. My baby girl, my Sarah. She had gone through all this alone, and I did not know. He answered my messages from my cell phone, she continued, so that no one would suspect. Only I would know. So you would see that I had seen them, but never answering. He said that way you would worry enough to come, and when you came, he would tell you I was traveling, and you would believe him, because you always believed him. He was right. I had always believed him, because it was easier to believe that everything was fine, because it was more comfortable to think that my daughter had found the perfect man, because I did not want to see what was right in front of my eyes. Forgive me, Sarah. Forgive me for not having seen who he really was. You did not know, Mom. He was very good at hiding it. We stayed in silence a long while. Outside, the city night followed its normal course. Cars passing, people living their lives. The world turned as always. But for us, everything had changed. I still wonder if I did the right thing entering that garage without calling the police first. And you, what would you have done in my place? Tell me in the comments. Mom, said Sarah suddenly. Yes, my love. Thank you for coming to look for me. Thank you for not believing him. Thank you for trusting your instinct. I squeezed her hand. Always, my baby girl. I am always going to come for you. She closed her eyes again, this time with something resembling peace on her face, and I stayed there, sitting by her side, watching her sleep, knowing that this was barely beginning, that the road to recovery was going to be long and painful, but also knowing something with absolute certainty. I was never going to leave her alone ever again, never again. The next 3 days were a nightmare, moving in slow motion. Sarah was still in the hospital. The doctors wanted to keep her under observation, not only for the dehydration, but because they feared the psychological trauma could manifest in ways we could not anticipate. I slept in a chair next to her bed, barely slept, really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark garage. I saw the ropes on her wrists. I saw Michael's look when he discovered us. On Monday morning, a psychologist from the hospital came. Her name was Dr. Henderson. She was a young woman around 40 with a soft voice and compassionate eyes. Mrs. Parker, can I speak with you a moment? She said to me. We went out to the hallway. How is my daughter? I asked immediately. Physically, she is recovering well, but emotionally, this is going to take time, a lot of time. I will do whatever is necessary, I know. But I need you to understand something important, she said, looking at me directly. Sarah is experiencing something we call bond trauma. For years, her husband conditioned her to doubt herself, to feel that she was the problem, to believe she deserved the mistreatment. But she is intelligent. She is strong. How could she let herself be manipulated like that? Dr. Henderson sighed. That is exactly what you should not think. Domestic violence has nothing to do with intelligence or strength. It has to do with systematic manipulation, with psychological control. Abusers are experts at making their victims doubt their own reality. I stayed silent, processing. Sarah is going to have good days and bad days, she continued. There are moments when she is going to blame herself. She's going to say things like, if I had been a better wife, or if I hadn't made him angry. Your job as a mother is to remind her constantly that none of this was her fault. I will do it. And you also need to take care of yourself. Vicarious trauma is real. You also went through something horrible. Finding your daughter in those conditions, that is not easily forgotten. I am fine. I said automatically. She looked at me with that look only therapists know how to give. Mrs. Parker, with all due respect, you are not fine, and it is okay not to be fine. For the first time since all this started, I felt tears coming for real. Not tears of fear or rage, but tears of exhaustion, of everything I had been holding back. I have to be strong for her, I said, my voice breaking, and you can be, but also you can allow yourself to feel. You can allow yourself to process. Look for professional help for yourself too, please. I nodded, although I was not sure if I was going to listen to her. That same day, in the afternoon, Mr. Davis arrived at the hospital. I had known him for years. He was the lawyer who had handled my father's inheritance case. A serious, meticulous man, the kind who inspires trust. Emily greeted me, giving me a hug. How is Sarah? Better. Physically and mentally, she is improving. I am glad to hear it. Look, I have news. Some good, some not so much. Tell me the good news. Michael is detained without bail. The prosecution is treating the case as kidnapping and aggravated domestic violence. With the video you recorded and Sarah's testimony, the case is solid. And the bad news? His family hired Edward Sullivan. The name hit me like a bucket of cold water. Edward Sullivan was one of the most well-known defense attorneys in the city, the kind who charges fortunes and has a reputation for getting the worst criminals free with legal technicalities. And what does that mean? It means they are going to fight with everything. They are already building a defense based on temporary mental disorder. They are going to argue that Michael had a psychological crisis, that he was not in his right mind, that he needs psychiatric treatment, not prison. I felt the rage growing in my chest. Are you telling me they are going to try to say he was crazy? Exactly. And if the judge believes them, instead of going to prison, he could end up in a psychiatric hospital, and from there, eventually, he could get out. No, it cannot be. Not after what he did to her. That is why we need Sarah to testify. Her testimony is crucial. We need to demonstrate that this was not an isolated episode, but a pattern of systematic abuse. But you just said she is recovering. How am I going to ask her to relive all that? Mr. Davis put a hand on my shoulder. I know, it is not fair, but it is the reality of the system. If we want him to pay for what he did, we need her to speak. I looked toward the hospital room where Sarah was. How was I going to ask her that? How was I going to make her go through that pain again? But then I remembered something Dr. Henderson had said. Your job as a mother is to remind her constantly that none of this was her fault. And to do that, for her to understand that she was not to blame, we needed justice to work. We needed him to pay. I will talk to her, I said finally. That night, when the doctors left and the hospital went silent, I sat next to Sarah's bed. She was awake, looking at the ceiling. Can't you sleep? I asked her. Every time I close my eyes, I see him, she said quietly. I see his face when he entered the garage. I see the darkness. I hear the sound of his footsteps. It will pass, my love. With time and therapy, it will pass. Do you think so? I know so. She stayed silent a moment. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I realize before that he was like this? And there it was, the question I had asked myself 100 times. Why didn't he want you to see it? I said. Because he was very good at hiding it. Because abuse does not start with hits. It starts with words, with small comments that make you doubt yourself. Do you remember that Sunday? She asked suddenly when I told the story of the difficult client and Michael got angry. Yes, I remembered that a few days ago. That night when we returned home, he told me I had embarrassed him, that I had looked like an aggressive woman in front of you, that I should learn to control my tongue. Her voice broke, and I believed him, Mom. I asked for forgiveness. I promised him I was going to be more careful with what I said. Sarah. And that was just the beginning. Then came everything else. The criticisms of my clothes. That dress is very provocative. Who are you dressing up for like that? The questions every time I arrived from work. Why did you take so long? Who are you talking to? Checking my cell phone. The constant jealousy. And what did you do? At first, I defended myself. I told him he was exaggerating, but he always had an explanation that sounded logical. It is just that I love you so much I cannot stand the idea of losing you. It is just that I am jealous because you are so beautiful that everyone looks at you. And I thought they were demonstrations of love. She closed her eyes until they stopped being just words, until he pushed me for the first time. It was a small shove. I did not even fall. But then came another and another. And each time he asked for forgiveness. He cried. He swore to me it was never going to happen again. And I believed him. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed, Mom. Because you had always taught me to be strong, independent. You raised a woman who did not take anything from anyone. And there I was, allowing my husband to treat me like that. How was I going to tell you? How was I going to admit I had failed? Tears ran down my cheeks. You did not fail. He manipulated you, but I should have seen it. I should have been stronger. No, listen to me well. I took her face between my hands. You did not fail. You are not weak. You are a survivor. You got out of this alive. And that requires more strength than most people have. She hugged me and cried. She cried like she hadn't cried in days, and I held her, like when she was a child and fell off her bicycle, or when she was rejected at school, or when her heart was broken for the first time. Only this was different. This was worse than any scraped knee or broken teenage heart. This was a trauma that was going to take years to heal, if it ever healed completely. When she calmed down a bit, I said, Sarah, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it? Mr. Davis came today. Michael's family hired a very good lawyer. They are going to argue that he had a mental crisis, that he was not in his right mind. I saw her face go pale. And what does that mean? That we need your testimony. We need you to testify, to tell everything that happened, from the beginning until now, to demonstrate that this was not an isolated episode, but a pattern. I cannot, she said immediately. I cannot stand in front of him and talk about this. I know, my love. I know it is difficult, but it is the only way to ensure he pays for what he did. And if they do not believe him, and if they think I am exaggerating, and yes, they are going to believe you, because I am going to be there. Mr. Davis is going to be there, and we have evidence. We have the video I recorded. We have the medical reports. We have everything we need. She stayed silent for a long time. I am scared, Mom. I know. I am scared too. But we are going to do this together. She nodded slowly. Okay, I am going to testify. I am going to tell everything. I hugged her again. My brave girl. My Sarah. The next day, we were discharged from the hospital. Sarah did not want to return to the house she had shared with Michael. Of course not. Just the idea gave her panic attacks. You are coming to live with me, I told her. Your room is still the same. Everything is as you left it. Are you sure? I am not going to leave you alone, Sarah. Never again. We arrived at my house at sunset. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood. The same house where she had grown up. The same house where she had learned to walk, to read, to dream. I accompanied her to her room. Indeed, everything was the same. The posters of her favorite bands from when she was a teenager, the books on the bookshelf, the blue quilt she had chosen at 15. She sat on the bed. She ran her hand over the quilt. I feel as if I were 15 again, she said with a sad smile. In a way, you are starting over, I told her, but this time you are not alone. That night, I prepared her favorite dinner, enchiladas, the ones I made her when she was a child and felt sad. We ate in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. The silence of two women who had gone through hell together and had come out the other side. After dinner, while washing the dishes, my cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated to answer, but something made me do it. "Hello, Mrs. Parker, good evening. This is Dr. Reed speaking. I am a psychiatrist at the county jail." My heart raced. "Yes? I am calling to inform you that Michael Vega has attempted suicide tonight. He is stable, but we needed to notify you as the victim's closest relative." Victim. They called Sarah the victim. "And why are you calling me? Your daughter is listed as an emergency contact, but we understand she is not in a condition to receive this information. That is why we contacted you." "I understand. What do you need?" "Nothing for the moment. Just that you are informed. The attempt was not successful. He is under psychiatric surveillance. Does this change anything legally?" There was a pause. "I am not a lawyer, ma'am. But yes, it could affect the case. It could strengthen the mental disorder argument. Of course it does." "Thank you for informing me," I said, and hung up. I stood there, phone in hand. Had the suicide attempt been real, or had it been a strategy? A way to reinforce the mental crisis defense? I did not know. And honestly, I did not care. The only thing I cared about was that my daughter was safe, and that, whatever happened with Michael, I was going to make sure Sarah had the life she deserved. A life without fear. A life without pain. A free life. The following weeks were like walking in quicksand. Every day brought a new complication, a new obstacle, a new way the system seemed designed to protect the abuser instead of the victim. Michael's suicide attempt had been news, not in the big media, but on some local portals. Man detained for domestic violence tries to take his life in county jail. The comments on social media turned my stomach. Poor man, he must be very desperate. She must have done something to drive him to that extreme. Women always exaggerate. Surely it was a simple couple's argument. I had to stop reading. Because if I kept reading, if I kept seeing how people defended a man who had kept my daughter locked up like an animal, I was going to go crazy. Sarah did not read the news, nor social media. She had deleted all her accounts. She spent her days in her room, almost all the time in bed, staring at the ceiling. She started going to therapy 3 times a week. Dr. Henderson had recommended a trauma specialist, Dr. Patricia Rivers. "How did it go today?" I asked her every time she returned from her sessions. "Fine," she always said. But I knew she was not fine. I saw her at night, when she thought I was asleep, crying silently in her room. I saw her jump every time the doorbell rang. I saw her check the window locks again and again. Fear had installed itself in her in a way that no therapy could cure overnight. One afternoon, 2 weeks after she left the hospital, we were drinking coffee in the kitchen when my cell phone rang. It was Mr. Davis. "Emily, I need you to come to my office tomorrow. There are updates on the case. Good or bad? Complicated." The next day, Sarah and I went to the lawyer's office. It was an old building downtown, smelling of paper and varnished wood. We sat in front of his desk. He had a thick folder with documents. "Well," he began, "the prosecution formally presented the charges: aggravated kidnapping, qualified family violence, and attempted femicide." "Attempted femicide?" Sarah asked. "But he never tried to kill me. Legally, the fact of keeping someone in conditions that endanger their life constitutes an attempt. You were 5 days without enough water, without food, without medical attention. You could have died." Sarah stayed silent. "The good news is the charges are solid, Mr. Mont," Davis continued. "The bad news is the defense is being very aggressive. Edward Sullivan presented a psychiatric report diagnosing Michael with borderline personality disorder, an acute psychotic episode. And what does that mean? That they are going to argue insanity, meaning he is not responsible for his acts because he was mentally incapacitated. But that is a lie," I said. "He knew perfectly well what he was doing. He answered Sarah's messages from her cell phone so no one would suspect. That is not something someone in a psychotic episode does." "Exactly. And that is what we have to demonstrate. That is why we need your testimony, Sarah. We need you to tell in detail how the pattern of abuse was calculated, premeditated, conscious." Sarah nodded. I will do it. I already decided. I am going to testify. Good. The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. There you will have to give your testimony, and Michael is going to be present. I saw the color drain from Sarah's face. Present? In the same room? Yes. He has the right to be present at his own trial. I cannot, she whispered. I cannot see him. Yes, you can, I told her, taking her hand, and I am going to be there with you. Mr. Davis leaned forward. Sarah, I know it is difficult, but I need you to understand something. This man kept you prisoner for 5 days, and now he is playing the victim card. If we do not stop him here, if we do not demonstrate he was fully conscious of his acts, he could go free, and he could do this to someone else. Those words resonated in the silence of the office. Sarah closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. Okay, she said finally, I am going to do it. That night, while preparing dinner, Sarah approached me in the kitchen. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, my love. Why do you think I fell in love with him? I mean, you met him. You spent time with him. Did you never see anything strange? I stopped. I left the knife with which I was chopping onions. It was a question I had also asked myself 1,000 times. Honestly, no, I said. He was charming, always kind, always attentive, always said the right things. And now, when you remember those moments, do you see something different? I sat on one of the kitchen chairs. Sarah sat in front of me. Now that I think about it, yes, there were small things that at the time seemed insignificant to me, but now make sense. Like what? Do you remember your birthday 2 years ago? You organized a dinner with your friends. Michael did not want to go. He said he did not feel well, that he had a headache, but I noticed how he looked at you when you were getting ready. There was something in his eyes, like resentment. Sarah nodded. That day, he made a terrible scene before leaving. He told me I was dressing like a tramp, that my friends were a bad influence, that he preferred we stay home together, but he did not want you to know, so he invented the headache thing. And you went anyway? Yes, but I cried all the way to the restaurant, and at dinner I could barely enjoy myself because he was sending me messages every 10 minutes, asking where I was, with whom, what I was doing. Did your friends not notice anything? I was very good at hiding it. I smiled. I laughed at the jokes. I took photos for Instagram, showing what a good time I was having, but inside I was anxious, worried, counting the minutes to be able to go back home so he would stop being angry. Her voice broke, and when I arrived, he was waiting for me at the door. He smelled my breath to see if I had drunk alcohol. He checked my purse. He read all the messages on my cell phone, and then he told me married women do not go out partying alone, that I should have more respect for our marriage. My God, Sarah. And the worst is that I believed him, Mom. I thought he was right. I thought I was being inconsiderate to him. So I stopped going out with my friends. I stopped going to those dinners. I stopped answering their calls. And they thought I had become one of those women who forget their friends when they get married. Tears ran down her face. I lost all my friends, one by one. And I did not even realize it until it was too late, until I had no one else but him. That was the plan, I said, to isolate you, so you would have no one who could question his behavior, so you would have no one to ask for help. He succeeded, she whispered. He had me completely alone, but you are not alone anymore. You have me, and we are going to recover your life. We are going to recover everything he took from you. We stayed in silence a while. The water in the pot started to boil. I got up to lower the fire. Do you know what hurts me the most? Said Sarah suddenly. What? That I was happy before meeting him. I had my job, my friends, my hobbies. I liked going running on Sundays. I liked going to museums. I liked reading in cafes. And are you going to do all that again? I don't know. I feel as if he had stolen that part of me, as if the Sarah I was before no longer existed. I approached her. I lifted her face so she would look at me. That Sarah is still there. She is hurt. Yes, she is scared, but she is still there. And with time, with love, with therapy, she is going to come out again. Do you really believe it? I know so. We hugged again, and in that hug I felt something I had not felt in weeks. Hope. Small. Fragile. But it was there. The days before the hearing were the hardest. Sarah barely slept. She had constant nightmares. She woke up screaming in the early morning. I ran to her room. I hugged her. I told her she was safe. But the fear did not leave. Dr. Rivers prescribed medication for anxiety. It helped a little, but not enough. One night, 3 days before the hearing, I found her in the kitchen at 2 a.m. She was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees, crying. "Sarah, what happened? I cannot do it, Mom. I cannot stand in front of him and talk about what he did to me." I sat on the floor beside her. "Yes, you can. You do not understand. When I think about seeing him, when I think he is going to be there watching me, I feel like I cannot breathe. I feel like I'm going to faint. I know. But think about this. He wants you to be afraid. He wants you to feel small. He wants you to stay quiet. Because as long as you are quiet, he can keep playing the victim role. And if I break, and if I cannot finish speaking, then we will take a pause. You breathe, drink water, and continue, because your voice is more powerful than his silence." She looked at me. "How are you so sure?" "Because I know you. Because I know you are stronger than you think. And because you are not alone. I am going to be in that room. Mr. Davis is going to be there. Dr. Rivers is going to be there. We are all going to be there for you." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay, I am going to try." "You are not going to try. You are going to do it." I helped her get up from the floor. I took her back to her room. That night, I fell asleep in a chair next to her bed, watching her sleep. Like when she was a child and had a fever, like when she was a teenager and had her heart broken, as always, because that is what mothers do. We protect, we accompany, and never, never do we give up. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and cold. Sarah got up early. She showered. She put on a navy blue dress, simple, that I had lent her. She put on a little makeup to hide the dark circles. But when I saw her, I thought there was no makeup in the world that could hide the weight of what she was about to do. "Are you ready?" I asked her. "No, but let's go anyway." We arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. It was an old building with dark hallways and a smell of dampness. Mr. Davis waited for us at the entrance. "Good morning. How are you?" "Nervous," I said. "It is normal." "Sarah, let's go over what is going to happen one more time. You are going to go up to the stand. The prosecutor is going to ask you questions. You answer with the truth, calmly. Then the defense attorney is going to cross-examine you. He is going to try to confuse you, make you doubt, make you look bad. Do not fall into his traps. Just answer what they ask you. Nothing more." Sarah nodded, but I saw she was shaking. We entered the courtroom, and there he was, Michael, sitting next to his lawyer. He was thinner, paler, had deep circles under his eyes. But when he saw us enter, when his eyes met Sarah's, something in his expression changed. He smiled, a small smile, almost imperceptible, but Sarah saw it. I felt her tense up beside me. "Breathe," I whispered to her. "Do not give him the power to scare you." She nodded. We sat on the benches designated for the prosecution. The judge entered. We all stood up. "You may be seated." We begin the preliminary hearing in the case of the General Prosecutor's Office against Michael Vega Gonzalez for the crimes of aggravated kidnapping, qualified family violence, and attempted femicide. My heart beat so fast I thought everyone in the room could hear it. The victim is called to testify. Miss Sarah Parker Vega. Sarah stood up. She walked toward the stand with trembling steps. She swore to tell the truth. She sat down. And for the first time in weeks, she looked up and looked directly at Michael. And in her eyes, I saw something I had not seen since this started. I saw fury. The prosecutor stood up. He was a young man, around 35, with glasses and a gray suit. His name was Mr. Roberts. "Good morning, Miss Parker," he began with a firm but kind voice. "I know this is difficult for you. We are going to go step by step. Agreed?" Sarah nodded. "For the record, can you tell us your full name?" "Sarah Parker Vega. And what is your relationship with the accused?" He was my husband." "How long were you married?" 2 years, but we were a couple for 4 years in total." "I understand. Miss Parker, can you tell us in your own words what happened on October 22nd of the current year?" Sarah took a deep breath. I was sitting in the front row, directly in her line of sight. Our gazes met. I gave her a small nod. "You can do this," I told her without words. It was a Friday," she began with a trembling voice. "I had arrived from work around 6 in the afternoon. Michael was home. He offered me a coffee. I accepted. I had no reason to suspect anything. And what happened next? I drank the coffee. We sat in the living room. We were watching television, and suddenly I started feeling dizzy. Very dizzy. I told him I did not feel well, that maybe I should lie down. Her voice broke a little, but she continued. The next thing I remember is waking up in the dark. I could not move my hands. I had something in my mouth. I could not scream. It took me a few seconds to realize where I was. I was in the garage, sitting on the cement floor with my hands tied behind my back and duct tape on my mouth. A murmur ran through the room. The judge banged his gavel. "Order in the court," the prosecutor continued. "What did you do when you realized your situation?" I tried to scream, but the tape would not let me. I tried to move my hands, but the ropes were very tight. I panicked. I thought I was going to die there. Tears started running down her face, but her voice remained firm. "How long were you in that situation?" 5 days. 5 days, repeated the prosecutor, letting the number resonate in the room. "And during those 5 days, did you have contact with the accused?" "Yes. He came twice a day, in the morning and at night. He brought me a glass of water and a piece of bread. He took the tape off my mouth only so I could eat and drink. And then he talked to me." "What did he tell you?" Sarah closed her eyes. "He told me this was for my own good, that I needed to learn, that wives do not abandon their husbands, that I had been selfish to ask for a divorce, that he loved me too much to let me go." "Wait," interrupted the prosecutor. "Had you asked him for a divorce?" "Yes. A week earlier, on Friday, October 15th, I told him I wanted a divorce, that our relationship was not working, that I needed space. And how did he react? He stayed very quiet, too quiet. That calm scared me, and he told me, 'I am never going to let you go, Sarah. I prefer seeing you dead.'" Another murmur in the room. "I thought he was just angry," continued Sarah. "I thought eventually he would accept it. But a week later, he drugged me and locked me up. Miss Parker, before this incident, had there been violence in your relationship?" Sarah looked down. Her hands were shaking. "Yes. Can you give us examples?" "At first, it was only verbal. He criticized me constantly, my clothes, my work, my friends, my way of speaking. Then it became control. He checked my cell phone every day. He wanted to know where I was at every moment. He called me 10, 15 times a day if I did not answer immediately. And physically. The first time he pushed me was 6 months ago. I had arrived late from work. He was waiting for me at the door. He accused me of being with another man. I tried to explain that there had been a last-minute meeting, but he did not believe me. He pushed me against the wall. It was not a strong shove. It did not hurt me, but it scared me. What happened after that first shove? He cried. He asked for forgiveness. He told me he loved me so much that the idea of losing me drove him crazy. He promised me it was never going to happen again, and I believed him. But did it happen again? Yes, more frequently, and each time it was worse. Until 3 months ago, he slapped me, and then another, and then he started grabbing my arm so hard he left bruises. Did you report these incidents to the police? Sarah shook her head. No. Why not? Because I was afraid, because I felt ashamed, because he had convinced me it was my fault, that if I were a better wife, if I didn't make him angry, none of this would happen. She wiped her tears. And why? Because when he was not angry, he was the most charming man in the world. He brought me flowers. He cooked for me. He told me he loved me. And I wanted to believe that was his true personality, that the violence was only a mistake, something temporary. But it was not temporary. No, it got worse every time, until I asked for a divorce. And then he locked me up. The prosecutor nodded. Miss Parker, when your mother found you in the garage, what was the first thing you thought? I thought, thank God, I thought I was going to die there, that no one was going to find me. And then my mom appeared, and I knew I was safe. I wiped my tears. My chest hurt from holding back the crying so much. One last question, Miss Parker. Do you believe the accused knew what he was doing when he locked you up? Objection, jumped Edward Sullivan, the defense attorney. That question calls for speculation. I allow the question, said the judge. You may answer. Sarah looked directly at Michael. Yes, he knew perfectly well what he was doing. Every decision he made was calculated. Drugging my coffee so I could not resist, tying me up in a place where no one could hear me, answering my messages from my cell phone so my mom would not suspect. Everything was planned. Thank you, Miss Parker. I have no more questions. The prosecutor returned to his seat. Now it was the defense's turn. Edward Sullivan stood up. He was an older man, around 60, with perfectly combed white hair and an expensive suit. He had that expression that lawyers who charge fortunes have. Absolute confidence. Miss Parker. He began with a soft voice. I am very sorry for what has happened. It must be very difficult for you. Sarah did not answer. She just looked at him. You mentioned that my client asked you for a divorce, is that correct? I asked him for a divorce. Excuse me. You asked for the divorce. And can I ask why? I already explained. Because there was violence in the relationship. I understand. But before that week, had you expressed your desire to divorce? Not formally, but... Then it was a sudden decision. Was there anything specific that motivated it? Sarah hesitated. Many things. Accumulated. I see. Miss Parker, is it true that my client is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? I do not know. He never told me. And is it true that you threatened to leave him on several occasions during your relationship? Objection, said the prosecutor. Relevance. I am going to establish the relevance, Your Honor, said Sullivan. I allow the question, said the judge. Sarah took a deep breath. I did not threaten him. I told him that if the violence continued, I would leave. That is not a threat, it is a limit. And how did he react when you established those limits? With more violence or with panic? With fear of being abandoned? With erratic behavior typical of someone suffering an episode of mental instability? Objection, said the prosecutor. The lawyer is testifying. Sustained, said the judge. Rephrase the question, counselor. Sullivan smiled. Miss Parker, did you notice any change in my client's behavior during the weeks prior to the incident? He was quieter than usual, more absent. More absent? As if he were disconnected from reality? I do not know. Maybe. And when he locked you in the garage, did it seem to you that he was acting rationally? It seemed to me he knew exactly what he was doing. But you are not a psychiatrist, right? No. Then you cannot diagnose if my client was or was not in his right mind. I can know when someone is hurting me deliberately. Objection, said Sullivan. The witness is being argumentative. Sustained, said the judge. Miss Parker, please limit your answers to the questions. Sullivan walked toward his table. He took a document. Miss Parker, I have here text messages between you and my client. Can I read you some? Objection, jumped the prosecutor. Where did you get those messages? From my client's cell phone, which was seized as evidence. These messages are part of the file. I allow them to be read, said the judge. Sullivan cleared his throat. Message from October 3rd. You wrote, Michael, I need space. You are suffocating me. Is that correct? Yes. And on October 5th, I do not know if I can go on with this. I need to think. Also correct? Yes. And on October 12th, I think we should separate. Right? Yes. So during the 2 weeks prior to the incident, you were constantly threatening to leave him. I was not threatening. I was expressing my feelings. But for someone with borderline personality disorder, someone for whom abandonment is the greatest fear, those messages could be devastating. They could trigger a psychological crisis. Do you not think it possible? I do not justify what he did. I am not asking you to justify it. I am asking if it is possible that my client, in a state of mental crisis, acted irrationally. He knew what he was doing. That is your opinion. But psychiatric science says otherwise. Sullivan returned to his seat. I have no more questions. Sarah came down from the stand. She was shaking. She returned to sit beside me. I took her hand. You did very well, I whispered to her. But she shook her head. He made me look as if I were to blame. No, you told the truth. That is the only thing that matters. The judge called the next witness, Dr. Reed, the jail psychiatrist. She explained Michael's mental state when he attempted suicide. She spoke of his diagnosis, of his treatment. It all sounded very convincing. Too convincing. Then came the defense expert, a private psychiatrist who had evaluated Michael. In my professional opinion, he said, Mr. Vega was experiencing a dissociative psychotic episode at the moment of the events. He did not have full awareness of his acts. He acted under a pathological impulse derived from his personality disorder. And how do you explain the fact that he answered messages from the victim's cell phone? Asked the prosecutor. That requires planning. Automatic behavior can occur even during dissociative episodes. It is like being on autopilot. On autopilot for 5 days? It is possible. I could not believe what I was hearing. This man was selling a story that would make Michael go free, and the judge seemed to be buying it. When all testimonies ended, the judge announced a 2-hour recess to deliberate. We left the room. Sarah was destroyed. They are going to believe him, she said. They are going to believe he was crazy, and he is going to go free. We do not know yet, Mr. Davis told her. Your testimony was very strong, and we have physical evidence. Not all is lost, but I saw in his eyes that he was not sure either. We went to a cafeteria near the courthouse. Neither of us could eat anything. We just drank coffee and waited. The 2 longest hours of my life. When we returned to the room, the judge was already in his place. I have reviewed all evidence presented, he began, and I have reached a decision regarding whether probable cause exists to take this case to trial. My heart beat so fast I felt it was going to explode. The physical evidence is overwhelming. The video recorded by Mrs. Parker clearly shows the victim in deplorable conditions. The medical reports confirm severe dehydration and ligature marks. The victim's testimony is consistent and credible. I breathed a little. However, continued the judge, there's also evidence that the accused was suffering mental health problems. The suicide attempt, the psychiatric diagnosis, and the expert's testimony suggest he might not have been in full use of his mental faculties. No. Therefore, I order that the case proceed to trial. But I also order an additional psychiatric evaluation of the accused to determine his capacity to be judged. Until then, he will remain detained in a psychiatric hospital instead of the jail. The gavel banged. Session adjourned. Sarah covered her face with her hands. They are going to let him free. I am. I know. They are going to let him free. Mr. Davis tried to calm her. Not necessarily. The fact they order an evaluation does not mean they are going to declare him insane. We still have a chance at trial. but his words sounded hollow. We left the courthouse. Outside it was raining, a cold and constant rain that soaked everything. Sarah walked beside me like a zombie. In the parking lot, while searching for the car keys, I heard a voice behind us. "Sarah." We turned around. It was Michael. He was handcuffed, surrounded by security guards taking him to the van that would transport him to the psychiatric hospital. But he had stopped, and he was looking at us. "Sarah," he repeated, "I am very sorry for everything that happened. I did not want to hurt you. I was sick, but I am going to get better. And when I get out, shut up," I screamed at him. "Do not get near her. Do not talk to her." He ignored me. He kept looking at Sarah. "When I get out, we are going to fix things. Because I love you, and I know you love me too. You just need to remember it." "Sir, you have to keep walking," said one of the guards. But Michael did not move. "I am going to wait for you, Sarah. As long as necessary. I am going to wait for you." And then he smiled. That smile. The same charming smile that had deceived me for years. The guards pushed him toward the van. Sarah was paralyzed. "Let's go," I told her. "Let's go from here now." I put her in the car. I started it. I left the parking lot at full speed. Sarah said nothing the whole way home. She just looked out the window while the rain hit the glass. And I knew what she was thinking. The same thing I was thinking. That this had not ended. That it was barely beginning. And that the nightmare was going to last much longer than we had imagined. The following 3 months were a living hell of waiting. The psychiatric evaluation ordered by the judge dragged on and on. First they said 2 weeks, then a month, then 2 months. Every time we called to ask for the status of the case, they gave us the same answer. "They are still evaluating the accused. We will let you know when we have news." Meanwhile, Sarah was crumbling little by little. She stopped going to therapy. She said it was useless. She stopped leaving her room. She spent entire days in bed, with the curtains closed, without eating. I tried to talk to her, to cheer her up, but it was like talking to a wall. "My love, do you need to eat something?" I would say to her, entering with a plate of fruit. "No, I am not hungry. At least go out for a while. Get some sun." The doctor said, "I do not want to, Mom. Please leave me alone." And I left her because I did not know what else to do. Dr. Rivers called me every week to ask about her. "Mrs. Parker, Sarah has missed her last 4 sessions. I am very worried." I know, I am worried too. But I do not know how to help her. She does not listen to me. She is falling into a severe depression. If she does not receive treatment soon, she could put herself in danger. She needs to return to therapy, and she probably needs medication. I am going to try to convince her. But when I mentioned therapy, Sarah exploded. "For what, Mom? Why am I going to go to therapy if he is going to go free anyway? Why am I going to talk about my feelings if nothing I say is going to change the fact that the system failed me? We do not know if he is going to go free." "Yes, we do. You saw what happened at the hearing. You saw how that lawyer made me look as if I were to blame. You saw how the judge swallowed that whole story of mental illness. It is obvious what is going to happen. Sarah, you cannot think like that. You have to..." "What? Have faith? Be positive?" "I cannot, Mom. I cannot pretend everything is going to be okay when I know it is not true." And then she locked herself in her room again. I stayed on the other side of the door, listening to her cry, feeling like I was losing her, like I was losing my daughter again. Only this time, it was not Michael who was taking her from me. It was the trauma. It was the system. It was the injustice of it all. One night, around 3 in the morning, I heard a noise in the kitchen. I got up. I went downstairs. Sarah was there, sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers. They were documents from the case, transcripts of the hearing, medical reports. She was reading them, over and over again. "Sarah, what are you doing?" "I'm looking for something we missed, something we can use in the trial, some inconsistency in his story, something." "My love, it is 3 in the morning. You need to sleep." "I cannot sleep." Every time I close my eyes, I see him. I see him in that courtroom, looking at me, smiling at me, telling me he is going to wait for me. Her voice broke. Do you know what is the worst part, Mom? That part of me is still afraid he will keep that promise. Part of me is afraid he will get out and come look for me, and that this time he will not leave me alive. I sat on the floor beside her. It is not going to happen. I am not going to let it happen. You cannot be with me 24 hours a day. You cannot protect me from everything, but I am going to try. We stayed in silence a while. Mom, do you ever regret finding me? What? Because since you rescued me, your life also became a living hell. You have to take care of me. You have to deal with my crises. You have to go to all these hearings. You no longer have a life of your own. Sarah Parker, look at me. She looked up. Never, ever, not for a second, have I regretted finding you. You are my daughter. You are the most important thing in my life, and I prefer 1,000 times to be living this hell with you than to be comfortable in my life while you suffer. Do I not deserve a mother like you? Of course you do, and one day you are going to believe it. I helped her get up. I took her back to her room. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, but I could not sleep. I stayed awake all night, thinking about everything that had changed in these months, thinking about the happy daughter I used to have, thinking about the broken woman who now slept in the next room, wondering if one day I would see her smile for real again. Mr. Davis summoned us to his office on a Tuesday afternoon. I have news, he said when we sat in front of his desk. Good or bad, the results of the psychiatric evaluation are ready. Sarah tensed beside me. And they determined that Michael is fit to stand trial. They found no evidence of psychosis or mental incapacity that prevents him from understanding the charges against him. I breathed a sigh of relief. Then the trial goes ahead. Yes, but there is something else. The defense presented a motion for a plea deal. A deal? Asked Sarah. What kind of deal? Michael would plead guilty to aggravated family violence and injuries. In exchange, the prosecution would drop the charges of kidnapping and attempted femicide. The sentence would be 5 years, with the possibility of getting out in 3 for good behavior. Sarah stood up abruptly. 3 years. He kept me locked up like an animal for 5 days, and he is only going to spend 3 years in jail? It is an option, Sarah. It is not mandatory to accept it. And what is the alternative? Go to trial, fight for the full sentence, which could be 15 to 25 years. But that means another year of legal process. It means more hearings, more testimonies, more cross-examinations like the one you already went through. And it also means the possibility that they declare him insane and he goes free. Right? Said Sarah. The lawyer did not answer immediately. It is a risk, yes. Although they already declared him fit for trial, the defense can argue mental disorder again during the process. And if they convince the jury, he could go free. Finished Sarah. It is possible? Sarah let herself fall into the chair. I cannot do this for another year, Mom. I cannot spend another year going to hearings, reliving all this, seeing his face. I know, my love. But 3 years. 3 years is nothing. In 3 years, he could get out. And then, she did not finish the sentence. It was not necessary. We all knew what would come next. What do you recommend? I asked the lawyer. He sighed. Honestly, it is a difficult decision. On one hand, 3 years is very little for what he did. On the other hand, it is a guaranteed sentence. If you go to trial, you could get more years. But you could also lose everything. How much time do we have to decide? 1 week. We left the office in silence. In the car, Sarah spoke. I do not know what to do, Mom. I know. Part of me wants to fight, wants him to pay with the full sentence, wants everyone to know exactly what he did to me. And the other part? The other part just wants this to end, wants to be able to move on with my life, wants to stop living in this constant limbo. Both options are valid. What would you do? I stayed quiet a moment thinking, I want him to pay for everything. I want him to rot in jail. But I am not the one who has to relive the trauma in every hearing. I am not the one who has to look him in the eye. You are. And if you tell me you need this to end, then we accept the deal and we move on. Sarah stayed looking out the window. I need to think about it. During the following days, Sarah was quieter than ever. She barely ate. She barely slept. She just thought. I respected her space, but I was terrified of what she might decide. On Friday night, 4 days before the deadline to respond, Sarah entered my room. I already decided. She said, "Yes, I am going to accept the deal." "Are you sure?" "No. But I need this to end. I need to be able to breathe again. I need to stop feeling that my life is on pause, waiting for a verdict. It opens." "Okay, we are going to call the lawyer tomorrow, but on one condition," she added. "Which one?" "I want to read an impact statement at the sentencing hearing. I want to tell him face to face what he did to me. Not for him, but for me, to be able to close this chapter. Of course. Let's do it." The next day, we called Mr. Davis. "We accept the deal," I told him. "But Sarah wants to read an impact statement. Of course. It is her right. The sentencing hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now." Those 2 weeks passed in a blink. Sarah spent those days writing her statement. She wrote it. She erased it. She wrote it again. "I need every word to count," she told me. "I need to tell him exactly what he took from me." The night before the hearing, she read me what she had written. I cried the whole time. It was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. It was pure truth. "It is perfect," I told her. "I am afraid I won't be able to read it without breaking down. It does not matter if you break down. The important thing is that you say it." The morning of the sentencing hearing dawned with a clear sky. Sarah got up early. She showered. She put on a simple black dress. She applied makeup carefully, but could not hide the dark circles of 3 months without sleeping well. We arrived at the courthouse an hour early. Mr. Davis was waiting for us. "Ready?" he asked Sarah. "As ready as I can be." We entered the room. This time there were more people than at the preliminary hearing. Some journalists, family members from both sides. I saw Michael's parents sitting on the other side. They looked at me with hatred, as if I were to blame for their son being an abuser. Michael entered handcuffed. He looked better than the last time. He had regained some weight. He no longer had those deep circles under his eyes. The treatment at the psychiatric hospital had done him good. That infuriated me. My daughter was destroyed. And he was there, looking almost normal. The judge entered. We all stood up. "Good morning. We are here for the sentencing hearing in the case of the public prosecutor against Michael Vega Gonzalez. The accused has pleaded guilty to the charges of aggravated family violence and injuries in accordance with the agreement reached with the prosecution. He read the terms of the deal: 5 years in prison, possibility of parole in 3, permanent restraining order, prohibition to approach Sarah for the rest of her life. Before passing sentence," continued the judge, "the victim has requested to read an impact statement. Miss Parker, you may approach the stand." Sarah stood up. She walked to the front with firm steps. She stood in front of the microphone. She opened the sheet of paper where she had written her statement. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out clear. "My name is Sarah Parker," she began, "and for 4 years I was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of the man who today is sitting in front of me." She looked up. She looked directly at Michael. "When I met you, I thought you were the man of my dreams. You were charming, attentive, affectionate. You made me feel special, but little by little, that person disappeared, and in his place remained someone who controlled every aspect of my life." Her voice broke a little, but she continued. "You took my friendships. You took my confidence. You took my ability to make my own decisions without feeling fear. And when finally I gathered the courage to tell you I wanted a divorce, you took my freedom. A tear rolled down her cheek. "You drugged me. You tied me up. You locked me in the dark for 5 days, and while I was there, wondering if I was going to die, you answered my messages from my cell phone as if everything were fine. Calculated, premeditated, conscious." She paused. "During these months, I have had to hear how your lawyer tries to paint you as a victim, as someone who did not know what he was doing. But I do know. I was there. I saw your eyes when you entered that garage. There was no confusion in them. There was no madness. There was only control." She took a deep breath. "You took many things from me, but you did not take my voice. And today I use that voice to tell you that I am not afraid of you. Today I use that voice to say that what you did to me does not define me. I am a survivor, and I am going to rebuild my life, piece by piece, without you." She looked at the judge. "I know the sentence is only 5 years. I know that in 3 years he could go free, and that terrifies me. But I also know that I cannot live the rest of my life in fear. So I accept this sentence, and I move on, because that is what survivors do. They survive." She stepped down from the stand. She returned to her seat, and for the first time in months, I saw something in her eyes I had not seen since all this began: strength. The judge dictated the official sentence. The accused will serve 5 years in prison at the state penitentiary. Upon completing his sentence, he will be prohibited from approaching the victim for life. Any violation of this order will result in new criminal charges. The gavel banged. Session adjourned. The guards took Michael away, but before leaving the room, he turned around one last time, and he said something to Sarah. I could not hear what it was, but I saw how Sarah's face went pale. "What did he tell you?" "I asked her when we left." He said, "I see you in 3 years." And he smiled. That damn smile. 3 years. Those 2 words became a constant shadow over our lives. "I see you in 3 years." Sarah heard them in her nightmares. She saw them written on every calendar. She felt them like a countdown towards something inevitable. But something changed in her after that hearing. It was not immediate. It was not magic. It was gradual, like the sunrise that arrives so slowly you do not notice when it stopped being night. The first sign was a week after the sentencing. Sarah came out of her room on a Thursday morning. She was dressed, hair combed, with a little makeup. "Good morning," she told me. "Good morning, my love," I replied, trying not to show my surprise. "Did you sleep well?" "Not much, but I dreamed something different last night." "Yes? What did you dream?" "I dreamed I was running, like I used to, through Central Park, and there was no fear, only wind on my face and the sound of my feet against the pavement." She poured herself a coffee. "I think I want to try running again. Not today, not yet, but soon." I felt something loosen in my chest. "When you are ready, I will go with you." "You?" "Mom, you hate running, but I love you more than I hate running." She smiled, a small smile, but real. "Okay, when I am ready, we run together." And that was where it started. Sarah returned to therapy, this time with a different attitude. Before she went because she felt she had to go. Yep, she told me, "Now I go because I want to go." Because I understood that healing is not something that happens alone. It is something you have to choose to do every day, even if it is difficult. Dr. Rivers called me one day to tell me, "I do not know what happened, but Sarah is making incredible progress. She is working on her trauma in a way she had not done before. She is facing her fears instead of avoiding them." Do you think she is going to be okay? I think she is already on the path. It is going to take time, probably years, but she is going to be okay. I cried when I hung up. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. A month after the sentencing, Sarah did something I never imagined she would do. She went to the house she had shared with Michael. Alone. Well, not completely alone. I went with her, and also Mr. Davis. The property was now in the process of being sold as part of the divorce settlement. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked her when we parked in front of the house. "I need to do it. I need to enter there one last time. I need to recover my things, and I need to say goodbye to that part of my life." We entered. The house smelled closed up, of abandonment. Sarah walked through the rooms with a serene expression. "Here was where he told me for the first time I was a bad wife," she said, pointing to the kitchen, "because I had burned dinner." She kept walking. "Here was where he checked my cell phone for the first time," she said, in the living room. "He said he just wanted to see a photo, but later I saw he had read all my messages." We went up the stairs, and here was where he pushed me for the first time, she said, in front of the bedroom. "It was barely a shove. He told me it had been an accident, and I believed him." She opened the bedroom door. She entered. She stood in the center of the room, looking around. "Do you know what is the saddest part, Mom? That in this room there were also good moments, or at least moments I thought were good. Mornings where we woke up hugging, nights where he told me he loved me. And now I do not know if any of those moments was real, or if everything was part of his manipulation. Maybe both things are true," I told her. "Maybe he loved you in his own way, and that way was toxic and damaging. Love does not justify abuse. Never." Sarah nodded. She opened the closet. She started taking out her clothes, her shoes, her things. We made several boxes. When she finished, she looked at the empty room. "Goodbye," she whispered. "Goodbye to the woman I was here. Goodbye to fear. Goodbye to all this." And we left. We did not look back. 2 months after the sentencing, Sarah got a job. Not at a big agency like before, but as a freelancer working from home. "It is perfect for now," she told me. "I can work at my own pace, without pressure, without having to explain to anyone why sometimes I need to take a day because I had a bad night." I saw her bloom little by little. She started designing again. Posters, logos, illustrations. One afternoon I entered her room and found her drawing. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I'm illustrating my story," she said. "Dr. Rivers suggested I find a creative way to process everything that happened, so I am making a sort of, graphic diary with drawings and illustrations representing each stage." She showed me what she had done up to that moment. There were dark, painful drawings representing the abuse, but there were also drawings of light, of hope, of rebirth. "It is beautiful," I told her. "It is therapeutic. Every time I finish a drawing, I feel I let go a little more of the pain. And what are you going to do with all this when you finish? I do not know. Maybe nothing. Maybe I keep it for myself. Or maybe someday I share it, so other women know they are not alone, that you can survive, that you can heal." I hugged her. My artist girl had returned. The biggest change came 6 months after the sentencing. One Sunday morning, Sarah came down to the kitchen where I was preparing breakfast. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "Tell me." "I have been thinking a lot about everything that happened, about the trial, about the sentencing, about everything." "Yes?" And I realized something. I spent so much time angry because they only gave him 5 years. So much time afraid because in 3 years he is going to get out. So much time thinking about him, about what he did to me, about the injustice of all this. She paused. "But you know what? He does not deserve to occupy so much space in my head. He does not deserve that every decision I make is dictated by the fear of what could happen when he gets out. He does not deserve to have so much power over my life. You are right." So I decided something. I am going to live my life. I am going to rebuild it. I am going to pursue my dreams. And when those 3 years pass, I am going to be so far away, so strong, so surrounded by people who love me, that it won't matter that he is free, because I am going to be free too, truly free. I wiped the tears that were starting to fall. "I am so proud of you, and there is something else I want to do." "What?" I want to speak publicly about what happened to me. Not now. I am not ready yet. But someday, I want my story to help other women recognize the signs, to get out before it is too late, to know there is life after abuse. Are you sure? That means exposing yourself. It means the whole world is going to know your story. I know, and it scares me. But I also know that if my pain can prevent another woman from going through the same thing, then it is worth it. I hugged her so tight I probably cut off her breath. We are going to do it together. When you are ready, I am going to be by your side. I know, Mom. You always have been. That day after breakfast, we did something we had not done in months. We went running. Well, Sarah ran. I walked fast, trying to keep up with her pace. We arrived at the park. The sun shone through the trees. There were families walking, children playing, couples holding hands. Normal life. Beautiful life. Ready? Sarah asked me. Ready. And she started running. I saw her moving away down the path, her hair moving with the wind, her strong legs carrying her farther and farther. And in that moment, I understood something. She was going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she was going to be okay. 8 months after the sentencing, something unexpected happened. Mr. Davis called us on a Tuesday afternoon. "I have news about Michael," he said. My heart raced. What happened? He is being investigated for inappropriate conduct inside the prison. Apparently, he has had several incidents with other inmates, threats, aggressive behavior, violation of prison rules. And what does that mean? It means it is unlikely they will grant him parole in 3 years. His behavior is documented. Every incident adds time. Every rule violation reduces his chances of getting out early. Are you saying he is going to serve the full 5 years? It is very likely. And if he continues with that behavior, they could add additional time. When I hung up, I told Sarah, I expected her to be happy, but her reaction was different. "Good," she said simply. "But honestly, Mom, it does not matter so much anymore. I no longer live my life thinking about when he is going to get out. I no longer give him that power." And it was true. I saw her moving on with her life as if that news was just an irrelevant fact. She kept working. She kept doing therapy. She kept drawing her story. One day, she showed me the complete project. She had created an illustrated book. It told her story from beginning to end, from the first day she met Michael to the day she read her statement in court. It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It was real. "What are you going to do with this?" I asked her. "I am going to publish it as a digital book, free, so that any woman who is going through something similar can read it, so they know they are not alone." "And your name? Are you going to use your real name?" "Yes, because I have nothing to be ashamed of. He was the one who committed the crime. I was the victim, and now I am the survivor, and survivors do not hide." She published the book a year after the sentencing. It went viral. Thousands of women read it. Hundreds wrote her messages. "Thank you for sharing your story. It helped me recognize that I was also being abused. Your bravery inspired me to leave my abusive husband. I read your book, and for the first time in years, I did not feel alone." Sarah cried every time she read those messages, but they were different tears. They were no longer tears of pain. They were tears of purpose. Her suffering had found meaning. Her pain was helping others heal. 18 months after the sentencing, Sarah did something I never thought she would do again. She started dating someone. His name was Daniel. He was an illustrator, too. She met him in an online art group. At first, they were just friends. They talked about design, techniques, projects. But little by little, it became something more. "Mom, I am scared," she confessed one night. "I like him. I really like him. But I am so afraid of being wrong again, of not seeing the signs again. And have you seen any sign?" "No. He is the opposite of Michael. He is patient. He is kind. He respects my boundaries. He understands I have trauma. He does not pressure. He does not control. He is not jealous. Then give him a chance, but go slow and trust your instinct. Now you know what to look for. Now you know what the warning signs are. And if he hurts me, then you are going to survive again, because that is what you do. You survive, and I am going to be here to help you. I met Daniel 3 months after they started dating. He was a quiet man, soft-spoken, with kind eyes. During dinner, I asked him directly, "Daniel, my daughter has gone through very difficult things. Are you prepared for that? For the difficult nights? For the days where the trauma catches up to her? For everything that loving someone who is healing implies?" He looked me straight in the eye. "Mrs. Parker, I do not intend to cure her. I do not intend to save her. Sarah already saved herself. I only want to accompany her. I want to be someone she can trust. I want to give her the space and love she deserves. And I am going to go at the pace she needs. It makes sense. Okay, but if you ever hurt her, I am not going to do it. But if I do, you have permission to come look for me, like you did with him." And he smiled. I liked him. 2 years after the sentencing, Sarah and I went to a cafe in the afternoon. We were drinking cappuccino and eating pastries when she said, "Mom, I never thanked you." "Why?" "For not leaving me. For trusting your instinct that day. For going to look for me when something inside you told you something was wrong. If it had not been," she did not finish the sentence. "Do not think about that, but it is true. You saved my life, literally. I did what any mother would do. No, not any mother. Many mothers would have believed the story that I was traveling. Many mothers would not have persisted. Many mothers would not have trusted their instinct. But you did, and that is why I am alive. That is why I am here. That is why I was able to heal." She took my hand. "So thank you. Thank you for being the mother you are. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for loving me, even when I could not love myself." I cried right there, in the middle of the cafe. You do not have to thank me for loving you. That is never going to change. I know. But I still wanted to say it. We stayed in silence a while, holding hands, knowing we had survived the worst together, and that what was coming, whatever was coming, we would also face together. Because that is what mothers and daughters who have gone through hell do. They hold each other. They take care of each other, and never, never do they let go. 3 years passed faster than I imagined. Sarah no longer lived with me. She had moved to a small apartment with Daniel. They were engaged. The wedding was planned for next summer. My daughter had rebuilt her life completely. She had her own design studio. Her illustrated book had helped hundreds of women. She gave lectures at universities about domestic violence. She smiled, laughed, lived. It was like watching a miracle in slow motion. And then the call came. It was a Friday afternoon. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the phone rang. "Mrs. Parker, this is Mr. Roberts from the prosecutor's office." "Good afternoon, Mr. Roberts. I am calling to inform you that Michael Vega will be released next week. He served his full sentence. 5 years. My heart stopped. "Next week?" "Yes, on Tuesday. I wanted you and Sarah to be informed. The restraining order remains in effect, of course. He cannot approach her under any circumstance. If he does, you can call the police immediately." "I understand. Thank you for notifying me." I hung up and stood in the kitchen, processing. 5 years. 5 years had passed since that horrible day in the garage, and now he was going free. I called Sarah. "Hello, Mom. Is everything okay?" "My love, I need to tell you something. Michael gets out next week." There was a long silence on the other end. "I knew it was going to happen soon," she said finally. "It is okay. I am prepared. Are you sure?" "Yes. I am not afraid anymore, Mom. He no longer has power over me." And it was true. I heard her voice calm, secure. My baby girl had really healed. The following Tuesday, Michael Vega left the state penitentiary. I did not go to see him, neither did Sarah. But the following days, I started hearing things. My brother Louis called me 3 days later. "Emily, did you hear?" "About what?" "About Michael. He is in all the neighborhood social media groups. He tried to get a job at several companies, but when they search his name on the internet, the first thing that appears is Sarah's book, her story, the articles about the case. And no one wants to hire him. They say he is a risk, that they cannot have someone with that history working with them." I stayed silent, processing that information. "He also tried to rent an apartment," Louis continued, "but the landlords refuse. They say they do not want problems in their buildings." "How do you know all this?" "Because his mom is going around saying it all over the neighborhood. She says Sarah is destroying him, that her son already paid his sentence, and it is not fair he continues to be punished." "He destroyed himself," I said. "Sarah only told the truth." "I know. I just wanted you to know." A week later, I ran into Dr. Henderson at the supermarket. "Mrs. Parker, what a pleasure to see you. How is Sarah?" "Very well. Happy. Engaged. I am so glad to hear it. And excuse the question, but did you hear about Michael?" "What about Michael?" "He came to the hospital last week. He wanted to be treated in the ER. He said he had chest pains. We checked him, and physically he was fine. It was anxiety. We recommended psychological therapy. And did he go?" "No. He said he could not pay a psychologist, that he had no job or money. He looked bad, Mrs. Parker. Very bad. Gaunt. Dirty. With that look, empty. I did not feel pity for him. I just felt the universe was doing its job." 2 months after his release, Sarah received a strange message on social media. She called me that night. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What happened?" "A woman wrote to me. Her name is Andrea. She says she is Michael's new girlfriend." "What?" "Yes. She wrote to me because she read my book. And she says Michael has been telling her I invented everything, that I exaggerated, that he never really hurt me, that everything was a misunderstanding. And does she believe him? At first, yes. But then she started noticing things, constant jealousy, calls all the time asking where she is, checking her cell phone, and now she is scared. She asked me if he really did all that, if he is really dangerous. What are you going to answer her?" I already answered her. I told her the truth. That yes. That everything I wrote in my book is real, that he is dangerous, and that if she is seeing those signs, she needs to get out of that relationship now, before it is too late. "You did good." She answered me an hour ago. She says she is going to leave him, that she thanks me for opening her eyes, that maybe my book saved her life. I heard Sarah take a deep breath on the other end of the phone. "You know, Mom, for a long time I thought what happened to me had no meaning, that it was just pain without purpose. But now I see my story is saving other women, and that gives meaning to everything. I am so proud of you. Thank you for never letting me give up." When we hung up, I stayed thinking about Andrea, about how she almost became another victim, about how Sarah's voice had saved her, and about how Michael, in his attempt to manipulate someone again, had run into a woman who already knew his true face, thanks to my daughter's testimony. Justice took strange forms. 6 months after his release, Mr. Davis called me. "Mrs. Parker, I have information about Michael I thought you should know." "What is it?" "He is being investigated again. Apparently, he violated the restraining order. He tried to contact Sarah through fake profiles on social media. She reported him, and now he faces new charges. How serious? Enough for him to go back to prison, maybe for 2 more years, maybe more, depending on what they find in the investigation. I did not tell Sarah immediately. I waited to see her in person the following Sunday. When I told her, her reaction surprised me. "It does not surprise me," she said calmly. "People like him do not change. He thought he could return to his life from before, and everyone would forget what he did. But the world does not work like that. How do you feel?" "Honestly, Mom, I no longer feel anything for him. Not rage, not fear, not satisfaction because he is in trouble again, just indifference. It is as if he were a stranger, someone I once knew in another life. That is true healing. I know. And the craziest thing is it took 5 years, but finally I can say I am free, truly free. Daniel, who was sitting beside her, took her hand. "And you are going to continue being so," he said, "because you have people who love and protect you." Sarah looked at him with so much love, I felt my heart swell. She had found what she always deserved, a real love, healthy, safe. A year after his release, I received a call from a journalist. "Mrs. Parker, my name is Gabriella Ross. I work for a national newspaper. We are doing a report on domestic violence and the justice system. Would you and your daughter be willing to give an interview?" I asked Sarah. "Yes," she said. "I want to speak. I want more people to know what happens when the system fails, and I also want them to know you can survive, that you can heal." The interview was published a month later. It was the cover of the newspaper. "Survivor of domestic violence converts her pain into purpose." The story of Sarah Parker. The article told everything, from the day I found her in the garage until now. It spoke about her recovery, her book, her work helping other women. And it also mentioned Michael, how he had violated the restraining order, how he had returned to prison, how his own family had abandoned him, tired of his lies and manipulations, how he lived now in a cell, alone, without visits, without anyone to defend him. The journalist had investigated and had included a detail that impacted me. According to prison sources, Michael Vega suffers from severe depression. He refuses psychological treatment. He spends his days in complete isolation. Other inmates avoid him for his reputation. The guards say he is a shadow of the man he was before. I read that paragraph several times. I did not feel sorry for him, but I did feel something resembling closure. The man who had tried to destroy my daughter had destroyed himself, not out of our vengeance, but by his own decisions, by his inability to change, by his arrogance in thinking he could keep manipulating and controlling. Life had collected its debt, and it had collected it in the most silent and devastating way, with loneliness, isolation, and the void he himself had created. Sarah's wedding was in June, a small, intimate ceremony in a garden full of flowers. When she walked toward the altar, with her white dress and a radiant smile, I cried. I cried for everything that had happened to reach that moment. I cried for the broken woman I had rescued from a dark garage 5 years ago. I cried for the nights of nightmares, for the afternoons of therapy, for the moments where I thought I would never see her smile like that again. And I cried with gratitude because she had not only survived, she had bloomed. In her speech during the reception, Sarah said something I will never forget. For a long time, I thought my story was only about pain, about loss, about trauma. But today, I realize my story is also about resistance, about love, about second chances. She looked toward where I was sitting. "Mom, if you had not trusted your instinct that day, I would not be here. So this moment is not only mine, it is yours too. It is ours." Everyone applauded, and I could only smile through tears, because she was right. We had won. Not in the courts necessarily, not with the sentence we wanted, but we had won in the only way that mattered. Sarah was alive, she was happy, she was free. And Michael was exactly where he deserved to be. Alone, empty, paying for his acts not with years of prison necessarily, but with the loss of everything he once had: his reputation, his freedom, his family, his ability to manipulate others. His own karma had taken everything from him, and we kept moving forward, stronger, wiser, more united than ever. Today, sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, looking at Sarah's wedding photos on the wall, I can say I understand something I did not comprehend before. Justice does not always arrive with long sentences or severe punishments. Sometimes justice arrives in more silent, deeper ways. Michael served 5 years in prison, then returned for violating the restraining order. But his true punishment were not those years locked up. His true punishment was losing himself, was living with the loneliness he himself created, was facing the rejection of every person who knew his truth, was seeing himself in the mirror and not recognizing himself. Meanwhile, Sarah bloomed. She married a good man who loves and respects her. Her book helped hundreds of women recognize signs of abuse. She has a prosperous business, healthy friendships, a life full of purpose. 2 weeks ago, she called me to give me news. "Mom, I am pregnant." I cried with happiness. My Sarah is going to be a mother, and I am going to be a grandmother. "Are you afraid?" I asked her. "A little, but I also have something I did not have before: awareness. I know what signs to look for. I know how to protect. I know that true love does not control, does not hurt, does not destroy. And you are going to be a wonderful mother." I learned from the best. We hung up and I stayed thinking about the whole road traveled, from that horrible day when I heard that moan in the garage, until today, when my daughter tells me she is going to bring a new life into the world. If there is something I learned from all this, it is that a mother's instinct never lies. That day I went to Sarah's house without warning. Something inside me knew something was wrong. I could have left when Michael told me she was traveling. I could have believed his perfect smile and convincing words, but I did not. I trusted that inner voice that screamed my daughter needed me, and thanks to that, she is alive. I also learned that healing is not linear. There are good days and bad days. There are moments of strength and moments of breaking, but every step counts. Every day you choose to move forward is a victory. Sarah taught me that. She taught me that true strength is not never falling, but getting up every time you fall. And I learned something about justice. It does not always arrive how we want it. It is not always fast or satisfying, but it arrives. Michael is not in prison forever, it is true, but he is imprisoned in other ways. Prisoner of his loneliness, prisoner of his guilt, prisoner of the consequences of his own decisions, while Sarah flies free. A month ago, Sarah and I went to drink coffee, as we do every Sunday. "Mom, if you could go back and change something, what would you change?" I thought about that. "I would have wished to see the signs sooner," I said. "I would have wished not to be so naive with him. But if you had intervened sooner, maybe I would not have learned what I needed to learn." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this horrible experience taught me things about myself I would not have learned otherwise. It taught me my own strength. It taught me to recognize true love. It taught me I can survive anything." She took my hand. "I'm not saying the pain was worth it, but I say I found meaning in it, and that makes all the difference. Now, when I look back, I see the whole road we traveled together, the nights of nightmares, the mornings of hope, the difficult days in court, the moments of small victory, the broken woman I rescued, the strong woman she became. And I realize this story is not only about trauma and recovery, it is about love, a mother's love that never gives up, self-love that rebuilds piece by piece, true love that arrives when you least expect it. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If a mother reads this and decides to trust her instinct when something does not feel right, then every tear we shed will make sense. If a woman trapped in an abusive relationship recognizes the signs and finds the courage to get out, then all this pain becomes purpose. Because that is what women do. We transform our pain into wisdom. We transform our wounds into lessons. We transform our survival into hope for others. Sarah is fine now, more than fine. She is blooming, and so am I, because together we learned that true love does not hurt. That strength comes in many forms, that trusting our instinct can save our lives, and that no matter how dark the night is, always, always the dawn arrives. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day or a whole life. God bless you. And remember, if something inside you tells you someone you love is in danger, trust that instinct. Because a mother's love, True love always knows. Always.